Good afternoon and welcome to Lunch Break with the Rabbi. Today is Tuesday, May 25th, 2021. It is the 14th day of Sivan, and it is the Torah reading of Parshat Baha'alotcha. Again, I remind you of this week's course. We have the JLI course tonight at 7:30 p.m. Please tune in. That's on Zoom, or join us in person and join us for a wonderful discussion about the history of the Jewish people and how it all prepares us for the time of the coming of Moshiach. As well as I welcome your comments, suggestions, and questions of what you would like these discussions at Lunch Break with the Rabbi to be about. So feel free to message me, text me, or email me, or even call me and let me know what your insight or questions or suggestions that you would like to discuss and hear about on the next future sessions of Lunch Break with the Rabbi. There was once this rabbi who wanted to know what his community thought about him. And because of that, he decided to do a little bit of a trick of what he would know that when he dies, what they would eulogize him about. So he spread the news that he was ill, and he climbed into the coffin, and he was lying in the coffin listening to the eulogies that were being said about him. This way he can be sure that they actually keep his reputation. And one fellow comes up there and talks about what kind of rabbi he was, family man, unbelievable character, and he goes on to describe the accolades and the greatnesses of the rabbi. And he's about to finish, and all of a sudden the rabbi jumps out of the coffin and says, "Hey, you forgot to mention my humility." What does it mean, humility? What does it mean for somebody to be humble? Well, in this week's Torah reading, it talks about the humility, about the most humble individual that had ever faced the earth. And that's actually not my words, but the Torah's words. Moses, the leader of the Jewish people, takes the Jewish people out of Egypt, crosses the sea, gives them the Torah at Mount Sinai, gives them manna from heaven, leads them for 40 years with their rambunctious behavior, complaining all the time. And over here, something of an episode where God gives him a description and says, he is the most humble individual of any person who ever faced the earth. What is that talking about? What does that mean of Moses being a humble person? Moses didn't realize his quality. He didn't have that stolz, that umph, that ability to stand up in front of a Pharaoh and get the Jewish people out of Egypt. He had to stand up against all evils of all time, complainers of all different kinds, to stand up against them. What does it mean he was humble? How does the humility with the ability to stand up for what is right, how did they jive with one another? So let's take a deeper look into this week's Torah reading and see what's going on here. This week's Torah reading tells us this 2 years, barely, after the Jewish people come out of Egypt. They're traveling in the desert, and they're about to go into the land of Israel. But all of a sudden, calamity and tragedy, complaint and argument starts to befall them. The first complaint is in this week's Torah reading, where the Jewish people start complaining about the manna, their food. They want different types of foods. Then next week, we start talking about the spies. They don't want to go into the land of Israel. Then Korach, the faction, starts making a coup against Moshe. What is it? What's going on over here? Aren't we talking about a generation of intellectuals, a generation of people that experience the Torah, a generation of people who experience miraculous events that no prophet ever dreamed of, ever, and they experienced it through crossing of the sea? How is it possible for such type of people to succumb to such little, seemingly meaningless arguments and complaints about food while they're enjoying spiritual ecstasy? Weren't their minds in the wrong place? So on the surface, we see that the Jewish people haven't yet reached the pinnacle of absolute spirituality, and therefore they were bothered by these things and sidetracked it. And for the spiritual reasons in it, we'll get to it when we get to those arguments. But then we come to another episode to the end of the Torah reading, where because of what's going on, Moses is told by God that he should now go to his own tent of gathering. And according to many commentaries at this point, he separated from his wife because he needed to be in a state of purity at all time. His sister Miriam and brother Aaron were disgruntled about this fact and were very upset. And they spoke about it to each other, saying, how is it that Moses left his wife? Some of the commentaries ask, why was it that Miriam should even gossip about her brother? If she had a problem, talk to your brother about it. What was the issue? What was she so upset about? And the commentaries look at it from a mystical meaning, and they take it a deep further. Nachmanides puts it this way. Miriam, if you recall, back in the day of Egypt, she was the cause for Moses' birth. Moses, his parents separated because of Pharaoh's decrees. Because of Miriam, they came back together and gave birth to Moses. She was a person that was always looking to put couples together because she was interested in the continuity of the Jewish people. Regardless of what age a person may be, Yocheved was 130 when Moses was born. She believed in the absolute continuity of the Jewish people, and this is only through the continuation of having children. And if she saw Moses separating from his wife, she said, what's this? But take it a step further. What was it? What was it that the Torah all of a sudden tells us about Moses' humility? That in this place, the Torah tells us, you know how great Moses was? He was the most humble of all people on the earth. There's another episode later on where Moses sees the Jewish people complaining to him. And they're complaining about the fact of the food and whatever it may be. And he tells God, you know what, God? I don't have the ability to tolerate all this complaining. Do something about it. And God at this point says, take 70 elders and they will share your prophecy. Joshua, his servant, his faithful student, comes to him and says, Eldad and Medad are saying prophecy. And he's upset about the prophecy that they're saying, talking about Moshe's succession. And Moses says, why are you upset? Let everybody have prophecy. I don't mind to share it. I'm not the one that's worth it. What am I? Again, telling us and describing the unique quality of Moses' humility. There were other people that were humble as well. When Abraham was offered by the people of Sodom and Gomorrah when he waged war to fight them for Lot, he said, I am but dust and ashes. But he was still something, dust and ashes. Moses says, what am I? What am I? I am only just a conduit delivering God's message. I am nothing about my own. And the question is, did Moses not realize the great qualities that he achieved? Did Moses not realize that he was the prophet of all prophets that spoke to God face to face? Was he in denial? Was he lying to himself? What was Moses' humility about? They say a story that once this great rabbi picked up a book off the floor. It was the book of the holy Rabbi Elimelech of Lizhensk, the student of the Maggid of Mizrich, and he gave it a kiss. So another rabbi asked him, are you so cherishing this book? He says, you know why? Because if the author would be on the floor, he wouldn't care. At least let me care for his book. That was his humility. The humility of Moses was such a unique character that not that Moses didn't recognize his greatness. Moses knew exactly what he was about. Moses knew that he was the one that took the Jewish people out of Egypt, gave them the Torah, and he was the leader of the Jewish people. But Moses believed that I am just a conduit. If somebody else would be in my position, they would probably do a better job. If somebody else would have the qualities that I was given, they might do a better job. I'm just this conduit from God placed me here to be able to be the one for the Jewish people. It is only with God's grace and blessing that I'm able to do this. Me on my own. What am I? Yes, I have the qualities that God has given me. I need to live to that potential and follow those qualities and make sure they're brought to fruition. But I must remember they're not my qualities. They're God-given qualities. That was the unique humility that Moses had. The lesson for us is very obvious. We all have a Moses within us. We all have that ability to recognize and identify that whatever God-given talent you have, to recognize and remember it's a God-given talent. We don't accomplish anything on our own. It is merely a blessing of God that makes us successful. We are conduits to bring God's blessing into this world. Should we be a vessel that is empty, which is humility, we can fill it and we can be able to receive God's blessings in multiple and in a great amount. But if we put ourselves in the way, and if we put our ego in the way, and we start saying, you know what, I got it all worked out, God, take the back seat, then you know what? You'll see your independence creates the ego, creates a place where blessing doesn't want to be. So let us all remember, let us all get a little bit of Moses in us and recognize and identify with the beautiful blessings and God-given talents that God has given us. Appreciate and realize our dependence on God, that whatever we have is a direct blessing from God. Let that humility sink in. Give us the ability to appreciate our lives, our families, and whatever we accomplish. God bless you. Have a great day and make it a wonderful one. See you tomorrow, lunch break with the rabbi, 1 p.m.